Insightful Student Race Relations Forum. My name is Wanda Allen Abraha, and I am the director of the City of Winston-Salem's Human Relations, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Department. We are excited, as always, to bring you this very, very important program. We are always excited and very much interested in what our youth has to say here in Winston-Salem. The youth voice is very important, not only to the Human Relations Department and Commission, but also to the community at large. And so we would like to provide a platform, a safe space for our youth to talk about sensitive subjects such as race relations. Tonight is exactly that program. We want them to come forward to talk about what the state of race relations is like amongst high school students. And so we have students here from every high school in Winston-Salem, Forsyth County schools, and we have asked them to be as insightful and forthcoming as possible with sharing with us their insights and their firsthand experiences. And so I think we are in for a real treat tonight. We have a dynamic group of young people with us. And so I hope you just sit back and enjoy listening to what you are about to hear tonight. This very important discussion. I would like to also thank the Human Relations Commission for hosting this program each and every year. Usually, of course, we are in person, and we usually have it at different high schools throughout the county, but we're erring on the side of caution again this year and just having it with the virtual format. But again, we don't want that to make anyone feel as though they cannot be as forthcoming as they would like to be with any thoughts, opinions, or insights that they may have. Also, we do have the chat feature on. So if you have any questions or comments for the panel, my staff will be monitoring those comments so that we can bring those forward at the appropriate time. Also, I would like to thank the Youth Advisory Council for being a partner with tonight's High School Race Relations Forum. And we have 2 members of the Youth Advisory Council who will be moderating tonight's discussion. So without further ado, I would like to go ahead and get started with the additional greetings that we have. And next, I'm going to toss to our mayor, Alan Joines, who is a huge advocate of our youth community and, of course, our community at large. Mayor Joines?
It's my pleasure to bring greetings to this High School Race Relations Forum. Although we're doing it virtually today, it will still be a very powerful experience. I've been able to attend some of these in the past, and I've been very impressed with the panelists that come together. And I can't think of a topic or a group that is more important right now in seeing the pressures that are on our high school students with things that have happened in our community in the past few weeks. So I really appreciate the panelists coming together, and those of you who will be watching and hearing from these young people. We learn a lot from them and how we can, as a city and a community, can address some of these issues in better ways there. So thank you for participating today. My best wishes to each of the panelists.
And thank you, Mayor Joines. We always appreciate the support of our mayor and our city council with all of our programs, and particularly programs that involve our youth. So thank you very much. Next, I would like to ask our Vice Chair, Commissioner Kerry Wiggins, to offer her greetings for tonight's program. Commissioner Wiggins.
Good evening, and welcome to an annual event that we hold for high school students. As I share with the students, it is always a pleasure to learn from them. They are actually living an experience that we haven't had the opportunity to do so. Each year, we have students to share their perspective on race relation and social justice issues, and each year I'm impressed by the level of thought and consciousness of the students. Please feel free tonight to share your perspectives, share your thoughts. Tell us how we can make things better in this community for all people. And you all are our future leaders of this community. So it is really important that you share with us what you would like to see happen, how we can help make things better for you at school and in your community. We want you to feel safe. We want this to be a better place for you. So you've been given a platform this evening to share those thoughts with us. And do understand that the leaders of this community are listening to you. Thank you. Enjoy learning from one another. And thank you, Wanda, for this opportunity.
Thank you, Commissioner Wiggins. We appreciate your leadership and your guidance. And next, we are going to hear from the Winston-Salem Forsyth County School Superintendent, Tricia McManus. We're so excited to have you with us, Superintendent McManus. I think it really demonstrates the commitment and the interest that the district has, and that you have taken time out of your very busy schedule to join the youth here tonight with us and to actually be a part of this very important discussion. So I just wanted to say ahead of time, thank you so much. And so I'll turn it over to you now.
Thank you so much. I would not miss this event. So it's funny because I really never get nervous to speak, and now I feel like I'm speaking to our students and I'm a little nervous about it. But I think it's because they make me want to be better. They make me want to be better every day. So thank you to the City of Winston-Salem Human Relations Commission for inviting me to say a few words of welcome. I'm completely honored to be amongst our amazing students who want to make our schools, our community, and this entire country a better place by having honest and serious conversations about race relations. Students, for you, hearing your voices, your stories, and your lived experiences is such a powerful tool for advancing racial equity within our school district, which is a major priority and a key component in our strategic plan. I commend you for your willingness to be bold and to speak your truth so that we can create a better tomorrow for every one of you and for all of your peers that are not on this call this evening. As we look at our district's academic achievement data, our discipline data, our climate survey data, it is obvious that we have a great deal of work to do to ensure that we serve every one of our students, that every one of our students is provided with access to a rigorous high quality instruction, as well as an inclusive learning environment that capitalizes on the strengths, talents, and gifts that every one of you bring to the table. And you bring such strengths, talent, and gifts. There is brilliance in every one of the 53,000 students we serve in Winston-Salem, Forsyth County schools, and this should be represented in our data. When racial achievement gaps and disparities exist, it means change has to happen, and change is needed. And I can promise you students, and I can promise this community, that we are working on systems level changes that will eradicate inequities and eliminate the data disparities that currently exist. We are very committed to you and to making our school system where students representing all races are able to thrive. So thank you, students, for using your voice and your advocacy for helping us make this a reality. Thank you so much. I look forward to hearing all of your thoughts this evening.
Thank you, Superintendent McManus. We really appreciate that. We appreciate your dedication and your passion for the students. And again, thank you for joining us. Okay, so now we're going to transition into what will preview the meat of today's program. We are going to have Brooke Lackey and Cameron Allen to take over from this point. But before they take over and have you all to do self-introductions, I would just like to make sure that you all understand that we do have questions that are already prepared to pose to you. And Cameron and Brooke will take turns posing those questions to you all. And we just ask that you're mindful of the length of your responses, because we do want to hear from every single student who's on tonight's panel. So be mindful of the fact that if you've spoken a couple of times already, defer to others who might not have had a chance to speak just yet. And Brooke and Cameron will do the same thing when they see that people are wanting to respond to a question. If you've already spoken, they may skip over you a time or two and give other people a chance to speak who might not have had the opportunity. And also, these questions are guided questions. meaning that Brooke and Cameron do have the right to ask follow-up questions depending on your responses. And so if there's an obvious follow-up that they could ask, I trust that they will certainly do that, and that they will encourage you to maybe expound upon whatever it is that you've shared with us. And so again, just wanted to kind of lay those ground rules. Of course, we're going to be respectful of everyone. We're not going to be using inappropriate language. We're not going to attack others if their points of view may differ from our own. And we're just going to show some respect for each other. That's what this is all about anyway. And so if there are no comments or questions, Brooke and Cameron, I am turning it over to you to take it from here for the remainder of the evening.
All right, thank you, Wanda. Before we get into the guided questions tonight, we are gonna have all of the panelists introduce themselves. I'll go first. My name is Brooke Lackey. I'm a senior at Middle College at Forsyth Tech. I use she, her pronouns, and I will be one of the moderators for this evening. I'm gonna pass it to Cameron.
Hi, I'm Cameron. I'm also a senior at the Middle College of Forsyth. I'll also be one of your moderators for today. Thank you.
We'll just pass it to everyone. If you see that there's somebody that hasn't spoken yet, go ahead and call on them. And then towards the end, we'll ask people who haven't gone yet to raise their hand, and then we'll just have everybody introduce themselves that way. So I'll go ahead and pass it to Edwin.
Hello, my name is Ed Cruz Castillo. I'm a senior at Atkins High School. And I'll pass it off to Jaden, my other counterpart from Atkins.
Hello, my name is Jaden Hall Ingram. I'm a senior at Atkins High School, and I'm going to pass it off to Joseph.
Hello, my name is Joseph Hairston. I'm a senior at Mount Tabor High School, and I will pass it off to Megan.
Hi, my name is Megan Maloney. I'm a senior at Reynolds High School, and I will pass it to Tristan.
Hi, my name is Tristan Moore. I'm a senior at Walkertown High School, and I'll pass it off to Madison.
Hi, my name is Madison Spangler. I'm a senior at West Forsyth High School, and I'm going to pass it on to Zuri.
Hi, my name is Zuri Sweat at West Forsyth High School, and I'm a junior. I'm going to pass it on to Nancy.
My name is Nancy Herrera, and I am a senior at Glenn High School, and I'll pass it off to J-Lo.
Hi, I'm Jill Page Thomas. I am a sophomore at Parkland High School, and I'm going to pass it on to Treasure.
Hi, my name is Treasure. I go to Reynolds, and I'm a senior. I'm going to pass this on to Isaiah.
Hi, my name is Isaiah. I'm a senior and I go to Glenn High School, and I'm gonna pass it off to, sure who hasn't went yet, Eddie.
Hi, my name is Eddie. I'm a senior at Parkland Magnet High School, and I would like to pass it to Ezekiel.
Hi, my name is Ezekiel Tracy. I go to Paisley IB. I'm in 10th grade. I'd like to pass it on to Orion.
Hello, my name is Orion Sledricks. I'm a sophomore at Paisley IB. I'd like to pass it off to Mora.
Hi, I'm Mara Cole. I'm a sophomore at Paisley IB, and I will pass it off to Tennessee hasn't gone. Rishi?
Hi, my name is Rishi Sambasivam, and I'm a senior at Reagan High School, and I'll pass it on to Naja.
Hi, my name is Naja, and I'm also a senior at Reagan, and I'll pass it on to Tristan.
I'm going to pass it off to Jose since I already introduced myself.
Hey everyone, my name is Jose Alonso, and I am a senior at North Forsyth High School. I'm sorry, I'll pass it on to anybody who hasn't went. Juliana?
Hi, my name is Juliana. I'm a junior at Winston-Salem Preparatory Academy, and
I'm going to pass it on to Nancy.
I've already gone, so I'm not sure who to pass it to.
Let's pass it to Michaela Beard. She hasn't gone yet.
Hi, my name is Michaela Beard. I'm a junior at Tabor.
If you have not gone yet, not introduced yourself, can you go ahead and raise your hand? I think we've hit almost everybody though. Okay, there's no hands, so everybody's been introduced. Let's go ahead and get into the questions. Wanda reminded us earlier that we are allowed to be vulnerable here. This is a space that we can take up with our experiences, but also let's keep in mind that we want to be respectful of everybody's experiences too, because this is a sensitive topic. So just making sure that we are mindful of what we are saying and listening to other people and just hearing out what they're talking about. Our very first question is, are you comfortable talking about race with your friends and family? Why or why not? So just let this question marinate a little bit. And whenever you have a response, just raise your hand and remember that you have about 2 minutes to talk about it. I see that Isaiah has his hand raised. Go ahead.
I'm fortunate enough to be able to talk about my race relations with my family. And that in turn kind of gives me more clarification of who I am as an African American. And I think it gives me more of a broader perspective on some current events.
Thank you, that's good. I hope most of you guys share that feeling too, but also you're welcome to share if you are, if you aren't. Obviously, having open discussions about it is better than not having open discussions about it. So does anybody else want to add on to the question? We have any hands? I see Zuri has her hand up.
I'm also fortunate enough to talk with my family about race-related issues. It gives me an opportunity to figure out really who I am and my parents' experiences and things my siblings have gone through and what I should do with that information and how I can help my community with that and help shape my experiences whenever I come across a problem when my race comes into play and how I should handle it. With my friends, it does depend on the friend. Because you're not quite sure how far you can go with them and how far you can talk about race-related issues. But I do like talking with my friends if I can, so I can see their point of view on things as well.
Thank you, Zuri. Depending on your peers too, obviously that's important. They're in your age group, et cetera, et cetera. You guys have anything else to add? If not, we can move on, but I want to make sure everybody, oh, I see Edwin has his hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm glad that the people before me have a safe space to talk about race. I do as well. I'm fortunate enough to be able to talk to my family. I do believe that my heritage as a Hispanic American offers a unique perspective into when race comes into play. And with my friends, I know a lot of people do feel uncomfortable talking about race, but I do feel like it is a conversation that is necessary. Because even though a lot of people may say they don't want to see color, I do believe that race makes up a large part of who we are as people, and therefore is integral at starting a dialogue and getting to know who someone really is.
Rishi, go ahead.
Hi, yeah, I just wanted to say also that talking to your family, I think is really influential, like when you compare it to talking to your friends, because me personally, like both my parents were raised in India and they had to immigrate over. So they kind of like understand what it's like to be a different skin color or a minority. And a lot of my friends, I can talk to them about it, but they might not understand it like my family does, like my sister does. She's been in the school system, she's graduated. So confiding in her is really important to me. And just talking through all the issues, or even telling my parents like something that they might not have experienced when they were in America, is really eye-opening. And I think it's necessary to kind of just break down barriers and teach other people something that they might not know.
Thank you guys, both of you guys, Edwin, Rishi, for being open about that. Obviously, everybody has a different perspective on it, and seeing how your family comes into play. That's really important too. We have some time for a couple more responses if anybody wants to add on to it. Jaden, go ahead.
So I just wanted to say, I agree with what everybody else has said before me. And I'm fortunate enough to have teachers and staff and people at my school who I can talk to about it as well. So.
Joseph, go ahead.
Thank you. I too am able to have open conversations about race with my family and with my teachers at school. And I just really think it's important to have these conversations because I think it helps advance in the problems we face with race and kind of come to, you know, more agreements and just kind of fix some of the issues that we have. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Joseph. I'm glad that most of us have a space to talk about it. If you don't have that space at home, the goal is to bring it to school so that we can talk about things like that, because it is a very important part of people's identities. Some people may not be proud of their race, but most people should be, you know? So just bringing it to where you can talk about it is really important. We're going to go ahead and move on to the next question. Do you and your peers feel deeply affected by race relations or social justice issues that have been occurring over the past couple of years? Why or why not? So once again, do you and your peers feel deeply affected by race relations or social justice issues that have been occurring recently? Why or why not? So just think about that question, and if you have a response, feel free to raise your hand.
You can go, Michaela.
So I do feel that me and my peers are affected by race relations because social media is what I can say amplifies things. So you're more susceptible to getting a lot of hatred that is racially biased. So especially if it's just certain denominations or how you kind of, how your character is, how your personality is. So I definitely do say that, like, me and my peers definitely would experience it, just because now that people do have social media, they can say things and then you not even know who said it to you. So.
Thanks, Michaela. I agree. I feel like social media really compounds things and really, it can really gaslight people because of how customized your feed is. Like everything that you see is customized to you. So when we see things that don't fit your ideals, sometimes it's like, oh, you know, it's like a weird shock. So we can really put things out there and not have reliable sources, et cetera, et cetera. Joseph, I saw you had your hand up just a second ago. Do you want to go ahead?
Yes, and I would just like to say I do feel like this deeply affects me, particularly as a Black man, and just seeing all of the killings from the men, the women, and all the other people of color from police. I think that deeply affects me because you see police every day and you see that there's still a lot of violence going on. And, you know, there's always a thought in the back of your mind, like if this is the day that, you know, something might go down, or you always have that thought in the back of your head of just kind of uncertainty and just kind of angst going on. So I think it definitely affects you.
Thank you, Joseph. Yeah, that's very sensitive. You know, there's a big debate right now over whether or not we should have police officers in schools, whether that helps people or is more of like more traumatizing in a sense. So there's a lot of different opinions on that. Does anybody else want to add on to this? How you feel about social justice affecting you recently?
Yeah,
Go ahead, take the floor.
I agree with Joseph, and it also makes like my other friends of color more like aware of our surroundings due to like the past events that have happened.
I wanted to agree with Isaiah and Joseph. Just as a Black man, you have to really be cautious of what you do and where you do it, and always have to double check what you're doing, displaying wherever you are. So.
All right, I see Ezekiel has his hand up, and also Naja, I see you too. So Ezekiel, go first, and then we'll go past it to Naja.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Well, okay. I feel like at Paisley, at least the peers part, they've done a good job of like not letting that get in the way of like how we communicate, like not like trying to overcompensate or like act too nice. Like they're just still like the same person to me. But everywhere else that like before when I was in middle school, I feel like that did impact kind of the way that people like talk to me. Like sometimes like I would be placed in like almost all white classrooms, and some of the people just would not talk to me if I would like talk to them or like try to ask them a question. It was just a weird experience because most of the time, like at least when I was in middle school, most of the classes that I had were all white classes.
Naja, you can go ahead, take the floor.
I feel like it does affect us a lot, especially with when adults see this stuff happening. A lot of times, a lot of pressure is put on younger generations. And right now we are that younger generation, and nobody really has like one right answer to how to fix these issues. So it's kind of a lot of pressure, and so it affects us.
Thank you guys both for your input. Very important answers to that question. Do we have anybody else? Eddie, is that a hand?
Yes. Going back to what you said about the debate of is it actually helpful to have police at school? Like, I'm pretty sure y'all already know that there's been like a lot of fights at Parkland. It's been all over the news, and we definitely like feel unsafe. Well, I definitely feel unsafe because it's been a little, I don't know how to explain it, but yeah, like having all those polices, like it's a little bit of traumatizing in a way, because it doesn't even feel like a school. I mean, honestly, it feels like a prison. And then I definitely had that talk with my teachers, how she said it's basically unfair to the other students that's been just trying to go to classes, trying to get their work. But we having all these other students, you know, causing all these problems, and then us getting affected by it with just adding more police to the school, it doesn't feel fair.
100%. Personally, I feel like SROs do need to be in schools, but they need to like their job positions need to be shifted. I don't know, because it's such a multifaceted problem, because you go back to the mental health of the people who are causing the issues and like are acting out and stuff like that. And then like, oh, our solution is to have police there. So I don't know, it's a whole big thing. I'm gonna let Tristan add her thoughts.
Hi, y'all. I've definitely been affected by the recent race relations that have been going on in our world. Coming from a biracial family, I'm both Black and white. And when everything was going down last July with the Black Lives Matter movement, my family kind of felt distance because some of my family, obviously half of my family is Black, half of my family is white, and I just didn't know when, like, my white family, like, they didn't really understand what was going on or why people were as enraged or mad about or sad or emotional about the situation. And it was really hard to see them not understand something that is so personal to me and that I just know so much about. So just trying to figure out how to teach them and tell them really what's going on to the best of my ability was really hard. And we're still working on it, but I feel like we've gotten better.
Cool. Thank you, Tristan. I get that. It's weird. You have an interesting perspective on it because you have half of your family not really sure how to help, the other family being affected. So actually, do you guys have any more responses? Wanda said that if we want to keep going, feel free. Edwin, you've got your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk a little bit about, I guess, the SROs and the police in school. I feel like one of the biggest problems that we have with police in school, and I think Eddie said that there was an increase in police, it just feels like it's more of a militarization and the way we see police now, it's more like we're waiting for something bad to happen for them to act instead of actually changing the different issues that we have, the mental health issues. At Atkins, I'm proud to say we have an SRO, and whenever we're in the lunch line, he goes out and he talks to students, he greets the students. I really do feel like it should be more about police and other kinds of people to be agents of change rather than trying to wait for something bad to happen to act.
Thank you, Edwin. I think that's a big thing because it should be that your SRO should just be able to go up and talk to you, but some people would be really uncomfortable with that, obviously. So how do you build that trust between students and SROs and administrators and everybody? How do you build that environment in a school so that people do feel comfortable and do have a safe learning environment so that people don't feel threatened at school, you know? Anybody else have anything to add? Jaden, go ahead.
I just wanted to quickly add how it might be important for people to be reintroduced to SROs and police officers just because of all the stuff that's happened in the past year.
Thanks for that. Thank you. Do you guys have any, have you guys thought at all, how we could improve these relationships with SROs? Obviously right now we feel like whenever there is issues at school and police are the ones to address it, usually it feels intimidating. Usually it's traumatizing. So do you guys have any ideas of how we could change that a little bit? I see a lot of hands. I'm going to start at Jayla, then we'll go to Ezekiel, then Edwin.
Well, I think that if you want to improve your relationship with the students when it comes to the police officers, you should really, like you said, talk to them. A few weeks ago, there were SWAT teams at my school, guys with huge guns and stuff. And one of them actually came up to me and was talking to me about my lunch, asking me what was in my lunch. And that sort of made me feel a little bit more comfortable talking to them and feeling a little bit more comfortable being around them, even though I was half scared to death with them. And just communicating with the students saying hey, this isn't your fault. We're just here to protect you. And even though that can be emotionally traumatizing, having that little talk with them can really help a student sometimes.
Thanks, Jayla. Ezekiel, do you still want to add what you got to say?
Yeah, I feel I agree, the SRO coming up and talking to us, but at least this year, our SRO, he came into our classrooms because he's new. He came into our classrooms and he sort of talked to us, explained who he is, and kind of he was very different. He was more he offered to come to our sports games for moral support. He even came in and gave us donuts randomly. The previous SRO that we had, I didn't even know who that was. But he came in and he told us who he was and kind of reassured us of why he's here. Because I feel that's kind of the misconception. Why are they there? like people, like if you were someone who went to if you were homeschooled and then you came to school and you just saw a police officer that's just there every day, you'd be wondering, okay, why is there a police officer here? Like, is there certain environment or environmental problems within the school that the police officers obviously there to address? Like, it was just more reassuring when he came into our classrooms and kind of explained to us why he's there.
Thank you, Ezekiel. And shifting the idea that, like, their title is School Resource Officer. That's what SRO stands for. So shifting it away from this idea of, oh, they're supposed to be there when something bad is going to happen, to more like, oh, they brought us donuts and like they're willing to talk to us and they're willing to be a school resource. That could be a solution in itself, you know? Edwin, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, Brooke, you kind of hit the nail on the head. What I was going to say, it really has to do with the humanization of the people we have around us. As you said, the SRO should be a school resource, not only there to protect us, but to help us, reach out, be an active member of the community, because like Ezekiel said, they're there every day. And so the same way that they should be open about students, we should also be open about humanizing them, because they're there to serve us primarily.
Thanks, Edwin.
Sorry, I was gonna add on that.
Go ahead. And Isaiah too.
Okay. I was gonna say, I think that, about 2 years ago, our council did sort of like a project where we were able to talk to police officers and like discuss issues. I think more of those like centered in the different schools, that would probably help a lot. You guys think that?
You mean like trust talks?
Yeah, the trust talks we did, yeah.
Okay, got you. Youth Advisory Council a while ago did these things called trust talks with police officers, and it really just opened the floor and made all the SROs come off of their pedestals, and we were all equal and able to talk about things. So yeah, just having more open conversations with them. Isaiah, go ahead.
Yeah, personally, my school in particular doesn't really give SROs like a platform to introduce themselves, which kind of makes it hard for students to like connect to them, if that makes sense. So I feel like, yeah, the school should introduce like a platform for the SROs.
That would be perfect. I think that's another thing. I don't want to look at an SRO and think, oh, he wants a reason to like get me in trouble or something like that. Like, they're human too. They want to get to know you, but how are you supposed to do that in a job position where you don't have that space to introduce yourself to students? So that's a whole nother thing. It's just having a space within a school to be able to get to know the students you're supposed to be working with. Let's see. Ezekiel, I see you have your hand raised. I'm going to see if anybody else does.
I just wanted to add one more quick thing. I do agree that meeting the officer is really important, because I feel like, at least right now, with the way the media works, it like when you look at them, it's kind of dehumanizing them. And when you actually talk to them, these are actual people. Like, you just look at a police officer, you don't know who they are. Like, they're a stranger to you. You don't know what they're gonna do to you, and they obviously have superior authority to you, so they can kind of do whatever they want to you, as long as no one else is watching. They could just ask you anything, and like ask you to do something that you don't want to do, you don't feel comfortable with, if you feel like it's unwarranted. So I feel like once they kind of, like, as they said, one of you guys said, step off their pedestal, I think that's really important.
It's scary to think that people would even think to do that, like in their position of power, to like exercise that over you. But I think we like to think that stuff like that can't happen, but it really can. So thank you guys for all of your input. I think we're moving on to the next question, right?
Okay, so great responses, guys. Okay, so for our third question, do you guys think it's important for teenagers to be involved in race relations or social justice issues? Why or why not? Joseph?
Yes, I definitely think that teens should be involved in race relations, because that's the only way, like I mentioned earlier, and like everyone else did, that we'll be able to progress and make changes in our world and in our schools and environments. I think the more active we are, and obviously there are different ways we can do that, those are the ways that we can kind of see the changes that we're searching for.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I feel like as the youth, since it's mainly, well, we're going to be the next generation that, well, has society. I think that we should like focus on expanding our knowledge on social issues and trying to bring awareness to these issues. Zuri?
I just also want to quickly add that I think that this race relations is actually pretty amazing. There's not a lot of youth in general are willing to speak their opinion or their mind just about things like this. I think that's the first step for our generation to really help ourselves and our future generations for the future.
Jaden?
I wanted to say that I feel like even before teenagers, like as soon as somebody's interested in speaking about race relations, it's obvious that they have an understanding about it. So if they would like to express their beliefs about it or their experiences, they should be able to.
Okay, we're gonna go to Michaela next.
I do think that it's important for teenagers to be involved in race relations, because I can say as teens, we tend to hide our feelings a lot, especially if we feel some type of discrimination, or basically we feel like we have to segregate ourselves in order to basically feel inclusive. So I do think that it's important for us to actually be involved in situations like these, because if not, we're gonna end up pushing ourselves into like this really deep depression about situations that do actually mean a lot to us and do actually might cause some type of hurt or some type of emotional pain to us. And I feel like when teenagers do experience pain and hurt, we just kind of brush it off or kind of hide under it because we don't think it's that important. And we don't think people are going to be actually willing to listen to us. So I do think that it's important that we do involve ourselves, because by not involving, we're only going to end up hurting ourselves. And then we're just going to end up in this really bad mental state.
That was really good. I guess we'll go to Madison.
Teens are like so crucial in this conversation because I feel like each generation has their own thoughts on race. I mean, I definitely don't have the same opinions as my grandparents do about race. So I feel like having this conversation and being with a group of teenagers and being able to learn and expand my mind and be able to grab new ideas about it so I can shape my children and then the future generation as well. So it's really, really important.
I really like the way that you brought up the fact that that you feel like you need to instill like these values in your children so that they know how to go into society. Megan?
Yeah, I absolutely agree, because our generation is the next generation of leaders, and we're also the next generation of voters. And so if we want to see change, especially in our government and in the policies that kind of rule over our country, we have to have these discussions about what we want to see change and how we go about making that change.
Isaiah? Yeah, and I think it's imperative for kids to like start getting involved in our community, like especially at the local level, because that's where like our school boards are at. Stuff like that directly correlates with like racial relations and stuff like that. If that makes sense.
Cameron, I believe Treasure had her hand up.
Okay, Treasure.
Well, I feel as though that many adults try to like say that teenagers don't know what they're talking about and try to like throw away our opinions just because we're younger, but they don't realize that we have seen the same things that they have seen because it's continuing on because no one has been ready or willing to talk about it.
So we have, I think we said Rishi.
Yeah, I feel it's important that we join these groups because sometimes the only way for some kids that are like reserved to kind of speak up about like race relations is if they have like other kids in their demographic or kids around their age that they can speak to. Because sometimes you don't always want to talk about it to older people or people they don't feel like will understand. And sometimes adults make it seem like it doesn't affect us directly. Like, why are you posting petitions on your story? Why are you posting all this stuff and not doing anything? But the reality is that's the only way to like spread awareness is to post. And sometimes actions do speak louder than words, but it's still pretty effective if you kind of spread that awareness. And I feel like some people try to put it down or make it seem like since it doesn't affect us directly, it's not effective what we're doing.
Brooke, I think you wanted to say something. Do you have your hand up?
Yeah, I do. I want to retweet what basically everybody said. Like, we're the next generation, right? Woo, go Gen Z. They're going to make all the change happen in the world. Okay. Include us in the conversations first. That's how we're going to get there, right? So educating us properly on all of this stuff is important. Rishi, you mentioned a good point, like sharing things on social media is a good way to spread the word, but also I think we need to be cautious with how we wield that tool of social media because it can be used to spread misinformation. It can be used to gaslight people. I know I'm going to admit to it, around Black Lives Matter, I was so gaslit that I wasn't willing to like talk to anybody that disagreed with me. And I reflect on that now and realize like, how am I supposed to live in a world if that's how I take everything, you know? If I want to work with my generation to make things work, you can't just be so like straightforward, strictly minded, you know? Does anybody else have anything to add on how we should definitely be involved in these conversations? Madison, I see your hand up.
I feel like teaching us about it is really crucial in our environment, but I feel like we don't get taught about it in schools. I know when Black Lives Matter, that protest was going around, I did not know about it. And I know a lot of my friends couldn't really say anything to me. And I felt so bad because I just didn't know the history about it and I didn't know what they were going through. So I feel like in our school system, we need to have those conversations, not only with our peers, but with our teachers as well. And I feel like it's so sensitive, they avoid it, but by avoiding it, it only makes it worse.
Exactly. Things like critical race theory, right? We're not taught about things like that in school. And I feel like Black Lives Matter for us really blew up over COVID and the pandemic, and it was also in the summer. So we weren't in school able to get this structure where we could learn about it in an environment where we would actually be hearing like just the facts. I feel like personally, I educated myself mainly on social media, and some of the things that I know may not even be true at all because it was on social media. So like you said, Madison, I feel too that education is the big part of it, because once you're educated, you're obviously a lot better you're more capable to make decisions like that. I don't see any other hands up, but does anybody?
Tristan and Jaden, yeah.
Bouncing off of what Madison said, I definitely think that it should be taught in schools and just talked about even more because it can be a taboo topic in different environments. And who knows, the next Generation Z could be the next policymaker that makes equality, like a policy that makes equality even stronger. So just talking about it and just making it a topic that people can be way more comfortable about can make those people that, like Rishi said, could be reserved, they could speak out and they could make the greatest change that we couldn't even think about.
I wanted to go off of what Brooke and Madison said. I feel like it's really important that teachers are educated on these topics, because if the teachers aren't educated, the people who aren't going through these experiences and don't know about it in schools, they will never really truly learn about what's going on and like things that are happening. So.
I think Orion has something too.
Yeah, bouncing off of what Jaden said, I think it's pretty focal for teens to be invested in kind of shaping the curriculum of these classes, because I feel like most of the interactions with teachers about these topics are so sensitive because of the main demographic of people discussing them. And they either go two ways, is that they either become insensitive or overly compensating to the topics being talked about. And that's mainly based out of just inexperience from the people talking about these topics on school boards.
Thank you, Orion. We just got a question from a viewer, so why don't we go ahead and answer this? Do you think that most of your peers and teachers recognize that they have implicit biases, or that most of them think race isn't an issue and that they don't see skin color? Do you guys understand what that question's asking? Like, do we need more clarification? Okay, cool. I'll repeat it again. Do you think that most of your peers and teachers recognize that they have implicit biases on race, sexuality? Obviously, we're focusing on race, but just implicit biases, period. Edwin, I see your hand.
Yeah, so at Atkins, I feel like, and this has to do also with just the diversity of our students. I do feel like our teachers are open about their implicit biases. I feel like they're able to recognize that. And as your question stated, I do feel like most people are, although there are some exceptions to that. And that has to do, again, with ignorance and just lacking the willingness to have these conversations. But it's things like this, things that we've said, education plays a big part in it. Talking to the staff so that they can talk to us about it is just very important to the conversation.
That's good that you feel that way, that most people do recognize that, but also recognizing that not everybody's going to recognize it is also important. Joseph, I see your hand, and there was a couple of hands a while ago, so raise your hand again if you wanted to add something.
Yes, I think in my school that my teachers definitely, recognize their implicit bias and try to do their best to obviously see color, because I think what people mentioned earlier, seeing color allows you to recognize the inequities between the different races and kind of finding ways to make changes in that area. And I think particularly in one of my in my government and politics class, it's a fairly diverse class, which allows the teacher to really talk to each student and get to know them and really get to understand their backgrounds better. And I think understanding what the students are going through and their life experiences really helps progress teachers with whatever biases they had.
Was there anyone else that want to say something on that? So I guess we can move on to question 4. Everyone's okay. Or Isaiah. Yeah, so I go to Glenn High School, and it's a very diverse population over there as well. So I feel like the teachers are like more prepared to deal with like more diverse populations. So I personally don't have that issue with them getting used to personal bias, if that makes sense.
Oh, I also had a quick thing before we move on to the next question. Is that all right? Oh, okay. I just want to jump off of what Joseph said. There is a teacher at West Forsyth High School who he knows that we are a very diverse school. Black, white, Hispanic, Asian. There's lots of more liberal people, more conservative people. So in our class, he likes to talk about current events. And even though we do know what his biases are, he wants to open up to the floor for students of whatever their point of view is and what they think about it. So even though he knows what his biases are, he always tries to stay as neutral as possible, and he wants to give us a platform to speak. I think that's really cool for a teacher.
Yeah, I definitely agree. At my school, there is a history teacher. Last year, I was in APUSH, and when we were talking about different things in history that had to deal with race, he always opened the floor to people of color or the people affected by those events to speak about how it affected them, even though it was historical. He still understood that his bias was he wanted to set aside his bias and he wanted to let everybody speak. And also in that class, we were, that was during the 2020 election. And of course he had his biases like everybody does, but he still let everybody speak. And he also took resources from like different news sites that he would tell us about. So it was both liberal and Republican, and it just made the environment way more comfortable so that everybody could feel comfortable in speaking their mind instead of feeling like, oh, I have to go with this group and because this class is more biased, and he didn't make it feel like that. So.
I feel like to bring some nuance to it, I feel like some of them don't kind of recognize that they have biases, because I know while I was at Paisley, there have been 2 teachers that students had said had made racist comments, and even when they tried to get them removed, it was a long drug out process, even though there was it wasn't there was scant evidence. It was multiple students were coming out and saying that this teacher was racist, and it was 2 different teachers, 2 different language teachers. And I feel like it was a weird process, hearing about that every day, because it started to get annoying. And I feel like some of our peers as well kind of do understand, at least, that some of them have biases.
Thanks for adding that. I think I'm going to add this really quick. I feel like even a solution to help with that aspect is to have a process with how you deal with teachers that are being racist. Because obviously, if you're being racist, you're not creating an inclusive learning environment like Miss Mick. I know her by Trisha, so I'm just going to call her Trisha. But just like we were talking about earlier, having an inclusive learning environment.
Brooke, let me interrupt, Brooke. We want to call her Dr. McManus because we are in a formal program, okay?
Okay. Dr. McManus obviously said earlier that we want to create an inclusive learning environment. So having a process in which we deal with when teachers or administrators are not creating an inclusive learning environment could be one of these solutions. Anyways, I think it's time to move on to the next question.
Okay, so for our 4th question, have the race relations or social justice issues across the country affected you personally? And how? Jayla?
Well, it affected me personally. First, personally, it affected me because it made me be scared to even leave the house. I would be scared to go to the grocery store, go to the mall, in fear of someone stereotyping me or saying, hey, are you stealing something, or something like that. Can you hear the other part of the question too? Not just the personal part, but it also, sorry, can you say the question again? I'm sorry.
Okay, so it's have the race relations or social justice issues across the country affected you personally? And then the second part was just how.
Okay, thank you. But like I said, being scared to go out the house, but also impacted my academic career as well. At one of my previous schools, one of my teachers was scared to actually teach me. Like, he was scared to even let me into the classroom because he believed that I would be a problem. He believed that I would be a disruptive student. And that just made me feel like my opinion really didn't matter in his class. But looking at some of these people who just make different changes because of their race, try to do something new with their race, like, inspires me. It inspires me to speak out about my problems at school dealing with race. It tells me to speak out about any type of social injustice that will happen. And I did. I will report that teacher. But personally, yeah, it does affect me because, I mean, you never know what's going to happen when you leave your house.
Yeah, I feel like I relate to that because of like going out the stores. My mom told me like not to keep my hands in my pocket so like people won't think you're stealing or whatnot. Michaela?
I'm sorry, my sister just walked in my room, but I feel personally affected because I'm in some of the after school activities that I do are predominantly white. So when situations did start happening, especially in the past year, I felt like the people who I thought were my friends definitely started distancing themselves, or they wouldn't distance themselves, and then they would end up saying comments that would be specifically biased towards somebody like me. For example, I am in Gerald TC, and that, is a military-based class, even though it doesn't, recruit for the military, but me being in the class that is predominantly white males, I did feel personally affected because they made it a point to kind of voice their opinions and how they felt, especially on situations in the past year. And it was a little disheartening because they were a little, I guess you could say, very honest about how they felt, especially towards African-American people. So I can't say it did end up personally affecting me. And also because I am in orchestra, which is a predominantly white music class, and I play 4 instruments, which are in all different genres, but specifically that one, I felt the most uncomfortable. And I did end up my sophomore year even taking a year off of it because I just felt very discriminated and segregated in the class.
I want to let Juliana go before me since she hasn't got to speak as much.
It has affected me personally because, like, even if I would just go to the grocery store, people would look at me differently than they would my mom because my mom's white and I'm mixed with white and Mexican, and they would just like look at me weird and just treat me differently than they would her.
Yeah, and I definitely got personally affected by it because I never thought I would have to get the talk because, I don't know, it was just a very weird concept to me to like the talk being like, keep your hands on the steering wheel. If you get pulled over, make sure that you talk in a like low tone and make sure that you're calm and collected, because I never thought that I would need that talk because I don't know. I didn't see myself as white or black. I saw myself as mixed, but I also didn't see myself as ever needing that talk. But when my mom kind of gave me that talk, my parents in general, I was kind of taken aback because I was like, whoa, like this is really my life right now. Like I have to watch myself and watch actions that I never thought I would have to watch in my life. And it just really opened my eyes to see that it's a serious topic. It's very serious. Race is so important, and just as like putting all the questions together, it's so important to talk about it because of how much it can affect somebody's life, even if they never thought it could, like me.
Yeah, like I said before, with like the police brutality, I'm more cautious about my surroundings, but it also pushes me to like break down the stereotypes of Black African males. Pushes me to excel in academics and sports, to kind of knock down and break the cycle of stereotypes.
Yeah, I feel like it's a motivator for me too. I saw Ezekiel.
Kind of to go off of what Tristan said, I kind of knew like what I needed to do and not do. I didn't really get to talk for my parents, but I do remember the first time I did get it was because of my coach, because they told us that the refs were kind of against us. And to give it context, I would have I play athletics at North Forsyth. That's a predominantly Black school. We only had like one non-Black player, and I remember we would usually get all the foul calls against us, not necessarily like when we needed them. They would never call the foul on the other team for us so that we could get our free throws. And that's kind of when I understood. And what was really like, it was really just something like, it's the first time I really like could really put my finger on it. Was like, okay, yeah, that's definitely off.
Okay, Eddie will be our last response, and then we'll move on to the next question.
It definitely affected me, especially within my own community, being like Hispanic, Latino. Like there would be like for instances where other Hispanics would think I'm Black because I am like a little darker than the usual Hispanic stereotype. And also my mom. And then there would be for instances where they would just say like racial slurs against me, and they wouldn't know that I'm Hispanic, but I would just clearly hear and how like colorist and racist they could be. And so it definitely gave me a different perspective on my own community and how we should fix problems within like ourselves, you know?
Thanks, Eddie. All right, time to move on to question 5. How has the current awareness of race relations and social justice affected your school's environment? I'm going to go ahead and put that in the chat.
Jaden?
I just want to say, now that people are more aware of what's going on, it's like an obvious over-sympathizing for people, and it's like pity almost when things are brought up in schools. It's like people are being held on a pedestal because they feel sad and I would say not grief, but they just feel a certain way towards the situation. So they're showing like over sympathizing and pity towards you.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say like it was weird seeing how like no one really noticed it before. Then all of a sudden it really became it was almost like a trend almost. And then I thought that felt weird to me a little bit. Tristan?
Yeah, I definitely agree that it turned into a trend and it kind of died down, sadly, and that's really sad. But my school has taken action to definitely make everybody not feel like they're being pitied, but more being valued. I do morning announcements at my school, and now we're in Spanish Heritage Month, right? So we're talking on the morning announcements about different things that's happened in history that values the Spanish heritage, and we're doing that like with Pacific Islander Awareness Month, Black History Month, and we're planning to do that throughout the year so people feel valued and not pitied.
I really appreciate that of Walkertown because it sadly has become a thing of pity where it really shouldn't be. I feel like a lot of people value that part of their identity, and when you pity somebody for being the race they are, it just brings you down, like it's something that people should be proud of, even if it makes you a minority, There were a couple of hands raised. Feel free to put your hand up if you wanted to speak. Joseph, go ahead.
Yes, to kind of like bounce off what Tristan was saying, I think at my school as well, we do a good job of trying to celebrate different races and just giving them a space to, if they would like to in class, just kind of address how they're feeling. And additionally, I think we have separate clubs for those different races so they can kind of talk about things that they're dealing with at school. And then if they have an issue or there's something they want to bring up, they can bring that up to the school board. So I think it's good for us to have clubs that can be distinctly for one race, so they can just kind of have a group to relate with and just see other people that look like them.
100%. That's really admirable of Tabor to do. I feel like not every school has done that, but definitely something that we can follow in the footsteps of. Does anybody else have anything to add? Isaiah, go ahead.
Yeah. In the school environment, but in the class particularly, we had more deeper conversations about basically like race-related topics, like when the Black Lives Matter movement happened. We spent like entire class periods just talking about our opinions on the topic.
Like we said earlier, it's better to have open conversations about these kind of things instead of just like shoving it in the corner and just letting it grow into something that becomes so overly sensitive, you know? So it's admirable to have those conversations. And I feel like with the current new, I don't want to say new, but like with the increased awareness of race relations and stuff, I feel like those conversations are more likely to take place. I saw somebody with their hand up. Was that Edwin?
Yes, Edwin.
Yeah, I wanted to bring up again what Jaden and I think Tristan were talking about how, you know, the quote that goes, "The candle that burns twice as bright and half as long." I do feel like these efforts for race relations and social justice, they have to be prolonged. And clearly showing up, we've shown ourselves as leaders of our community at school. We have to make sure that these problems are still talked about, because I feel like starting from my history in social media, I've probably seen 100 trends come and go. You know, there was a Sudan trend, there was Black Lives Matter, and the conversations die out. And us being aware of the problem has really spoken to me about how we have to keep these conversations. We can't forget about these things. And if we want to change, we're going to have to keep it in our heads that we're finally able to institute the change we must.
Thank you, Edwin. We just got word that we are low on time, but there are some people that haven't responded yet. Is there anybody that hasn't contributed to the conversation? Do you guys have anything to add? Anything to say before we move on to our last question?
Okay, so I don't think anything else. Okay, so our last question is, how open and receptive is your school to racial and cultural acceptance? Jayla?
I can happily say that Parkland is very open to anything. The teachers and administration at my school is very open to any student, no matter what your race, gender, sexuality, anything. They have made Parkland a very open space where I can be myself, and I am honestly the most happiest I've ever been at Parkland.
I'm glad that you have like a really open space to express yourself. Madison?
I feel like West isn't as receptive and acceptive of things like this, because I feel like West is very quiet about everything and kind of like push it under a rug and we'll go back to it later or just never go over it again. And especially with, I was going to say this earlier, but with Black Lives Matter, like nothing was said. I mean, I think we had a discussion or like a small talk about it in a sociology class I took my junior year, but it was very small and sociology is an elective and it's not a mainstream class. So I feel like if we had those conversations in mainstream classes, they would be so much more receptive. But I feel like West is such a quiet and kind of push it under the rug that we don't really get anything or get to have an open space to where people can talk about it.
That's good to know, because that gives us the opportunity to offer the solutions to where people have spaces to talk about it in school. Like, I can't remember who was saying it earlier. I think it was Joseph saying different racial groups have different clubs and stuff like that. Like that could be a solution for West Forsyth to help increase that conversation. Somebody just had their hand up and then they moved. I don't know.
I think it was Treasure. Let's see.
So going with what Madison said, I do believe that Reynolds it's getting better, but it's still not where it should be. I mean, we do have the Ebony Society, which is mainly for Black women, and we did try to create a Black Alliance Club, but there were no really Black males who wanted to join the clubs. And going back to what like Tristan said about how they went over like in the announcements about certain months that were designated for certain ethnicities, I don't believe Reynolds does that. We more so go on the intercom to talk about games and stuff, but don't really talk about racial issues, which I feel like they know that it's there, but they just try to move past it and they don't really address it. So they'll like give subtle hints like, oh, if you want to come and talk to someone, you can come into the student services or you can come talk to the principal personally, but they're not very direct. And it just kind of seems like they're trying to still tiptoe instead of being real with students.
I think we had Ziri.
To bounce off of what Madison said, she's definitely right for the Black Lives Matter and definitely a whole lot of issues been going on the last couple of years. They're not exactly open about it. They never like initiate something first to talk about it and like as a whole as a school to really talk with us about students about what happened. But the good thing I will say about it is we do have a lot of clubs that help us learn about different cultures. We even have an LGBTQ club. We do. We're very, very open. So I think that we're slowly moving forward. And I think once again, the one negative effect of our school is they're not very direct about it. We have to go to them to ask for this club to be created. We have to always initiate something, but we are slowly working there.
Thanks for your input, Zuri. Naja, go ahead. I see your hand raised.
I agree with what Madison, Treasure, and Zuri have said, and I think it sort of depends on the teachers, honestly. I think it's hard to judge the school as a whole because some teachers are open and receptive and willing to have conversations, and others would rather just not address it at all. Yeah.
That's an interesting point, too, to think it varies from person to person. I want to touch on what Treasure said, too. I think a common misunderstanding is if you leave the topic alone, people will just all be able to independently reflect and move on. But having spaces where people can reflect, most people need support to reflect on things like this. So just opening it up is really important. I saw that Megan had her hand up and Edwin, and Wanda just said Jaden. So we'll start with Megan, then go to Edwin, then Jaden.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what Treasure said about Reynolds, because I feel like acceptance and action are two different things. And Reynolds kind of almost puts up this front of being very accepting, and they'll have discussions available at lunch and certain clubs for minorities, but they don't seem to be taking any action to fix the sort of systemic issues within our school, like such as like diversifying advanced classes or just like getting more diversity. I think Reynolds has a really big issue with that, and they don't seem to be taking any obvious action to fix it.
I think Edwin can go next. So, oh wait, or is it? Do we still have time for more responses?
Yeah, we've got 10 minutes left.
Okay, yeah, I was making sure.
Well, I just wanted to say for Atkins, I really do feel like we are very inclusive. We have various different clubs, and teachers are always receptive and open to conversation about different topics and things that are going on in our school, society, and personal lives. So just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you guys for your input. Isaiah, I saw you had your hand up a second ago.
Yeah, so like Zuri and Jaden were saying, because Glenn has more of a diverse population, we have like a bunch of places where students can go so they don't feel alone. Like we have a very active Spanish club, Amped and Crosby Scholars, Latino Achievers, and more. So we're very open to racial and cultural acceptance.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, like how everyone else has been saying, I feel like school is kind of a safe place, or at least for Reagan's perspective, student at Reagan, I think it's a safe place, especially like, I think some of the things I have seen that are racially motivated, like negatively towards my parents, they've been outside of like the school area. So going to school excites me. And I also feel like Reagan sometimes does get stereotyped as like a one race school or like something that we're not. So I just kind of wanted to like clear that out and say that I do believe it's a safe place and it's becoming more diverse too.
Kind of contrary to what a lot of people have been saying, I don't think Paisley deals with these issues well at all. Mainly because, firstly, the high school program is so minuscule that, it's so minuscule that I don't think they really try to make too many individualized efforts for the high school instead of accommodating the middle school more. And I mainly think that these problems that Paisley has, because they don't address anything, is born out of the lack of diversity in their staff. And that's not the most focal problem. I think the most focal problem is that with the lack of the diversity within their staff, they also don't give any opportunities for students to actually make inquiries or give their input on these issues that the school has where they don't address anything. Or if they do address something, it's not coming from a place of experience, but more of a place of pandering from teachers.
I gotta say, my experience resonates with yours as well, Ryan. I went to Paisley and Cameron went to Paisley, and because of how small the high school program is, it doesn't feel like they're, at least while we were there, I didn't really feel that many direct like efforts to try and combat that. Like I know they had, Amped for African American males at Paisley, but I think that was a Crosby Scholars thing too. I go to middle college now, Cameron and I do, and even there, it's so like we have a graduating class of 50 people. So I think we're all just like, we are a pretty big happy family, but because of that mindset, I feel like there is no direct efforts to try and like give people outlets if they do feel like they're being racially profiled or just like if they are struggling with things at school like that. Anybody else have anything to add before we wrap up? I think we're towards the end of our conversation. Edwin, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to emphasize our role as the youth to when we see this lack of conversation and this lack of initiatives, we really do have to step in, because when you really think about it, this race relations, this discussion is relatively new. Even here in America, it was just in 1964 when the Civil Rights Act was passed. And even though that might seem like a long time, there are people still alive that were here to see that when society still thought of it as acceptable to be racist and colorist. We really do have to view this responsibility and take it seriously so that we can have more open discussion, we can have more diversity. I just wanted to emphasize that.
Yeah, I definitely feel like there needs to be more outlets for people to express their feelings, or well, especially in schools, people need a way to express like that there's a problem really going on with race.
Do we have I'm sorry. Go ahead, Cameron.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Does anyone that like hasn't participated in any of the questions want to say anything, or someone need to add anything else? Ezekiel.
To kind of latch on to what Brooke and Orion said, I feel like they really didn't, like, because high school was such a small, like, it was like maybe 150 students at most at Paisley, that they didn't try to accommodate, like, to what we needed, or, like, and it even goes beyond race, like, they just don't, like, do anything almost. Like, as if they don't want to, like, down talk to us, because I think they know that we know what's going on. But I feel like they're kind of afraid to, like, take that next step, because most of them, they know what's going on. They, interpersonally, they do talk about it, like, from student to teacher. But for the most part, I feel like they haven't addressed the whole group well enough. We've only had, like, one assembly about, like, all of the, like, what we need to know, and even then it didn't touch upon any of that. So yeah.
Thank you, Ezekiel. All right, guys, those are our questions. Thank you guys for participating and giving your honest thoughts and being open. I think we really needed to have that conversation. It's rare that we get spaces like this where we can really openly talk about it. Let's go ahead and hand it over to Robert Leake.
Brooke, let me jump in. And I want to thank everyone for participating. I would like to thank Brooke and Cameron for doing a good job moderating this discussion. It's not an easy thing to moderate. This is not an easy discussion to have. And I really want to commend all of you for being open enough to share your honest opinions and thoughts. So thank you so much for your time. And instead of tossing to Robert, I just want to talk about the fact that Chair Leake is the leader of the Human Relations Commission. He's also a pastor, and he has been very much involved with the youth and with this particular program and other activities that we've done for a number of years now. And so we're very fortunate to have someone of his caliber leading the Human Relations Commission. And of course, you heard from the Vice Chair, Ms. Kerry Wiggins earlier, Commissioner Wiggins. And so Chair Leake, would you mind taking us out tonight with your closing thoughts? And again, I just want to thank you all on behalf of the Human Relations Department and the City of Winston-Salem. Chair Leake?
Well, thank you so much, Ms. Wanda Abaha, our wonderful Director for Human Relations. And I also am thankful for my cohort, Vice Chair, Ms. Kerry Wiggins, and sorry for my delay getting on earlier. I had another meeting to attend. I do want to say that, you know, it's not easy to get on and talk in public, right, about race and talk about issues that are occurring in our school system. And I wanted to say that some of you all have already been through, and some of you all are still going through some issues in our public school system. But, you know, at the end of the day, public school system is a good place to be in, because you get to meet friends, meet new people, but especially in high school. High school is one of the golden years, I believe, and it go by so fast. I tell you, it go by so fast. And so it's great to have events like this tonight, to be transparent, to be open, not to be judged, not to look beneath or look, you know, as if you feel that you can't speak up or be vocal about it. So I am really proud of each one of you all, that you all have stepped up to the plate. And, you know, even though I'm the chairperson of Human Relations, you know, I'm not that old. I'm young. So I went to Parkland High School, and I graduated from Parkland High School and went on to receive my master's. I'm my master's. Okay, I'm going to claim my master's degree. But went on to receive my bachelor's degree at Winston-Salem State University. So, you know, education was my first major, but then I switched to business. But I say to say is that you all's minds are brilliant. Continue on doing the work that you're doing in your school. Continue on speaking up. Even when it seems like no one is listening, someone is looking at you as well. So I appreciate all of your feedback. I was texting Miss Wanda Abrahad some notes that I've taken. I'm going to share with the commission as well. So if I don't see you all anymore, congratulations again to our chairs for our YAC. Thank you all so much for your involvement. But if I don't see each one of you all anymore, have a blessed holiday season and continue on speaking up and know that your voice is always heard. Thank you so much.
And thank you, Chair League. Thank you for those comments. And everyone, please remember that you can watch tonight's forum at any time. It will be available on the City of Winston-Salem's YouTube channel. It will also be on the City of Winston-Salem's website. And also just remember to share it. Share it with your family and friends. A lot of people probably couldn't make it tonight for various reasons. So make sure that you share it. Our marketing and communications team with the City of Winston-Salem did a wonderful job tonight with helping us to get this aired. And so we want to thank Mr. Larry Bell from the marketing department for working with us on tonight's program. Again, everyone, thank you so much. Thank you especially to our youth council members who were participants and moderators. And we hope to see you all soon. Stay safe. Stay safe. Okay, have a good evening. Bye-bye.